from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, USDA rolls out its January cattle inventory numbers. We have reaction from the Cattle Industry Convention in Phoenix, plus more responses to the State of the Union. And agribusiness looking at 2018 with 2017 in the bin.
The market's got to chew through these offers, and while the funds right now are undoubtedly covering some shorts, they have not been getting paid to stay short.
We'll check on winter wheat conditions and the return of FFA to a small rural school in Nebraska.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. As the cattle industry meets in Phoenix for its annual gathering, USDA rolling out its biannual cattle inventory report. All cattle and calves in the U.S. as of January 1st, totaling 94.4 million head. That's up 1% from last year's tally and the highest in nearly a decade. Now, beef cow numbers 2% higher, with some of the biggest gains coming in Missouri and South Dakota. And the 2017 calf crop also 2% higher, just shy of 36 million head, with Missouri, Texas, and California leading the way. Betsy Gibbon is at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show this week. She joins us now with reaction. Betsy.
Don, at first blush, what is your reaction to these numbers?
I was very pleased, and I think it's a favorable outlook from the amount of growth we were concerned we might be having. I think it's much more metered. Given the rate of placements that we have seen through the last 3 or 4 months of 2017 and the number of this fall's calves that have had to go to the feed yard, I think it takes tension away from the market in the second half of the year, that we're not going to have a continuous increase in numbers like we will have the first half of the year. We're still on the cow numbers. We're 31.7. We're still looking for growth, certainly through 18, probably into 19 before we see cow numbers peak. And our modeling shows that 32 to 32.5 million beef cows. So I think that kind of eases the tension and kind of puts us on track to where we should be.
Any surprises or anything you want to make note of how this could potentially change the market or impact the market in 2018?
I think the game changers, I don't know that anything in there would be classified as a game changer, but I just think given the concerns that the industry has had, not only the supply of beef we have to deal with in 2018, but the quantity of competitive proteins, I think that puts us in a much more comfortable view that we will have large supplies, but manageable supplies through the second half of the year.
Great. Thank you, Don. I really appreciate it. Once again, my name is Betsy Gibbon, and I'm reporting in Phoenix, Arizona.
President Trump laying out a broad agenda for 2018 during Tuesday's State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress.
These outdated immigration rules, and finally bring our immigration system into the 21st century.
Farm groups calling for unity and follow-through on big-ticket items, including immigration reform, infrastructure, and trade. American Farm Bureau Federation President Zippy Duvall said the roadmap outlined by the president continues the theme of renewing rural America. Duvall calling the president's immigration package bold and should prime the pump for overdue action. Meanwhile, National Farmers Union urging President Trump to follow through on his promises specific to rural America, including infrastructure. America's cattlemen also focusing on trade.
We're always looking for a more definitive answer from him on trade, but the fact is he's in the middle of negotiations. And we know that when you're in the middle of negotiations, you don't play all of your cards, especially in a speech to Congress. But we do know that behind the scenes, with the success of the Montreal round and the positive feedback that we got from the Montreal round, that hopefully we can conclude the negotiations on the NAFTA 2.0, or what are they going to call that, and also the South Korean Free Trade Agreement, the chorus renegotiations, just as quickly as possible so we can have some certainty in the trade realm.
Woodall says there were multiple items cattlemen were pleased with in 2017, including rolling back WOTUS, national monument reductions, and reopening the Chinese beef market. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt signing a rule to finally block the much maligned Waters of the U.S. rule. The The EPA and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have been racing to pause the waters of the U.S. rule, also known as WOTUS, since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a nationwide ban on the regulation back on January 22nd. The Supreme Court could issue its final order to enforce its decision as early as February 15th, which means the rule will take effect across most of the country. The White House has completed its review of the EPA's rule to postpone WOTUS until 2020. Mike Hoffman keeping a close eye on the weather and conditions. He joins us with today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Take a look at this great photo from Christina Benz of Wapella, Illinois. She says this is her longhorn Sissy. Sissy is 14 years old and the most photogenic in the herd. Christina and Sissy are our February Facebook cover photo winners, and boy, you can sure tell from that. She'll be getting an AgDay cap and be featured on the AgDay Facebook page. Congrats. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see it's going to be kind of windy western Great Lakes, northern Mississippi Valley as we start the day. Also the front range of the Rockies in places. That area of wind kind of moves southward into parts of Texas and Oklahoma as well. Now by tomorrow morning, a lot of that's moving into the Gulf Coast and the East Coast areas with some of the higher elevations, and the Rockies getting into the act with some wind tomorrow as well. We'll have your forecast for the coming couple of days coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
It's hard to focus on 2018 when you've still got 2017 crop in the bin. We'll discuss coming up an analysis after the break. And later, keeping FFA and ag education classes has been a challenge for some rural schools. We'll see how Nebraska Town turned the tide on in the country. The Federal Reserve leaving interest rates unchanged Wednesday. The policy meeting is Fed Chair Janet Yellen's last as head of the central bank. The group signaling a gradual tightening of monetary policy later this year as the U.S. economy continues to expand and job gains remain solid. In agribusiness, commodities seeing red while financials turn green during Wednesday's trade. Let's see where those markets closed from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Today in soybeans, it was a little bit lower today. Some profit taking came in and really reduced some of the open interest, and that kind of sunk the market somewhat. We're just watching that closely because things are still pretty dry and warm in South America, and if that continues, that definitely is going to affect their crops. That should definitely start to underpin soybeans and really get that market rolling again. Corn today was steady, had mixed trade. It really traded on both sides of the market, but that kept the futures really unchanged. Now with wheat, the market also had a little bit of a pullback. Yesterday's new high kind of triggered some selling coming in. Of course, a little profit taking because the market's really been soaring and surging beyond anything that anyone had expected. That's all from the floor at the CME Group here in Chicago. I'm Virginia McGathy.
It may be 2018, but that doesn't mean 2017's crop is out of the bin. Tyne Morgan has more in today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Brian Splitt of Allendale. Brian, when we talk about corn, it's really hard to look at making a marketing plan for 2018 when you still have 2017, possibly 2016 corn still sitting in your bin. So what advice do you have for farmers when you look at prices today?
Right. We've had a nice rally over the last several sessions, and seasonally we should have some additional strength going into mid-February. That is when we're going to make our average price for crop insurance levels. The market has been nearly lockstep in values with last year, so I think the focus right now, you have to pay attention to the old crop board. I'm really focusing on July at this point. If you have bins and it's sitting in your bin, utilize that bin. Capture the carry. I'm hoping we can get a move up to 380. The market saw 390 last February. We had a lot more volatility last year, so I don't know if we're going to have quite the legs, but I think we could see some continued strength. There's been the inflationary play this week with money coming into commodities. So if you're not ready to make a move, you have to understand options are very cheap. So if you want to make a sale and get some cash flow, you could buy a call that's nearly at the money for 3.5 cents and have that through the end of February. If you don't want to make your cash sale, you could buy a put for about 3.5 cents and have at the money coverage. So the options are there for you.
When you look at corn and you look at these prices today, do you think that we have had some producers lately move some of that grain out, move some of that old crop grain out?
Without a doubt.
And so that helps a little bit, right? When we get some of these rallies that you don't have as much of that ceiling, or does it?
Well, there was a time yesterday when we had about 100 million bushels offered at the end of the day at 356 3/4 in March. Now, how much of that was actually a real offer, I don't know, but that's what the market was showing. The market's got to chew through these offers, and while the funds right now are undoubtedly covering some shorts, they have not been getting paid to stay short. We've got a lot of natural selling to be done.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we have much more on Ag Day when we come back.
To talk to Brian Splitt one-on-one, call Allendale Incorporated at 800-551-4626 or email him at bsplit@allendale-inc.com. Ag Day, brought to you by Alivo Seed Treatment from Bayer. Protect your soybeans from SDS and nematodes this season.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Our meteorologist Mike Hoffman. And Mike, I don't like it, but you keep telling me the cold weather is back.
And it's a pattern that we saw in late December, early January, and it is going to be here for a while, it looks like, in the east. However, when I show you the jet stream coming up, I'll point out that some of this initial cold air may not get very far south into the southeast, as it did earlier this winter. But we'll see. You'll probably get some shots. So the Arctic front right there across the northern plains. First front's just kind of a weaker front, bringing in slightly colder air, but the real cold stuff's behind the second cold front. And you can see as we head through the day today, both of them continue to move toward the southeast. There'll be some snow, northern Appalachians, back through parts of the Great Lakes. Rain showers throughout parts of the southeast, and you can see the next system is kind of moving northeastward, coming into the west coast, so it's not going to go as far south, but still Washington, Oregon, into the northern Rockies, going to get some precipitation out of that. Heading through the nighttime hours tonight, the Arctic front almost down to Atlanta by tomorrow morning, but high pressure is going to dry things out every place except downwind from the Great Lakes. Showers, maybe thunder showers into parts of Florida tomorrow. And you can see the next system coming in out west, heading through the day tomorrow. Arctic front kind of catches up with the first one, and much colder air moving into the northern portions of Florida by the end of the day tomorrow. Taking a look at precipitation estimates past 24 hours, most of it's been northern and eastern Great Lakes into the northeast and the northern Rockies. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see how we are going to add some with the cold front farther toward the south and east, but not a lot. Doesn't look like a real wet system. The one out west is fairly wet, especially western Washington. Again, this system's going to go a little farther north than the past few have. Snowfall estimate over the past 24 hours to the north and east of the Great Lakes into New England, and also from northern Colorado all the way back into the higher elevations of Washington, Idaho, and Montana, getting some snow. Adding in the next 36 hours, we'll add some more in the Pacific Northwest, the higher elevations anyway, and the northern Rockies, and a little bit through the northeast into the central Appalachians and downwind from the Great Lakes. That lake effect snow machine kicking in again. High temperatures this afternoon, only single digits. Northern plains close to 70 by the time you get to the Gulf Coast. Lows tonight going to drop below zero. Northern portions of the plains into the northern Great Lakes still mild in the southeast, and highs tomorrow afternoon only in the teens across most of the area of the Great Lakes into New England, all because of the jet stream. Again, we're going back to the pattern of a trough in the east, ridge out west, but you'll notice how it kind of flattens out at times over the southeast, so I don't see the cold air coming in and staying quite yet in your part of the country, but the cold air is coming into the Great Lakes from the northeast and staying for a while. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Red Bluff, California. First of all, mild with clouds and sunshine. You're in the ridge, high of 73 degrees. Here on South Dakota, lots of sunshine, but cold, high of only 11. In Xenia, Ohio, cloudy, just a bit of rain turning to snow, high 42.
We'll continue our look at the cattle industry next on Drovers TV as we gauge grazing conditions in the Central Plains. And later, the return of FFA has this school excited about ag education.
Ag Day, brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
Oklahoma pastures are struggling through a winter drought. USDA NASS says The statewide average precipitation in January was just 1/2 inch. The Oklahoma Mesonet says the state's been in drought conditions for 120 days. Now, 3/4 of the state's pasture and rangeland are called fair to poor. Drought in the Central Plains is taking a potential yield bite out of the wheat crop and winter wheat pasture.
In some cases, the root development was so poor that we didn't dare graze it for fear of pulling it out of the ground. So all told, it's just been a really kind of a disappointing year so far for wheat pasture.
USDA just releasing the monthly condition report on winter wheat. Oklahoma wheat fields showing the effects of drought, with 79% called poor to very poor. In Kansas, 14% is good to excellent. That's a considerable drop from a month ago when 37% of the crop earned those grades. 44% of Kansas wheat is poor to very poor. Now to the north, Montana wheat rates 66% good to excellent, and winter freeze damage is described as low. Winter wheat is also weathering pretty well in North Dakota. 85% of the crop is rated fair to excellent, but drought continues to be a problem in western and central North Dakota. It's also a problem in South Dakota. That said, 3/4 of the state's winter wheat is rated fair to good. Weekly wheat reports begin March 5th. When we come back, ag education returns to a rural Nebraska community. We'll have details after the break.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
For nearly a century, FFA has been a staple in rural America. However, there are some schools that lost chapters due to funding and resource issues. This morning, Betsy Gibbon takes us to a small school in Nebraska restarting its chapter and rebuilding ag education for future farmers.
The town of Neely is a dot on the map in northeast Nebraska, the definition of farm country, and proud of its rural roots.
Main motion, how do we state a main motion?
Yet the Neely Oakdale School District was missing something until now.
Everybody together, how do we state a main motion?
After losing its FFA program around 2003, ag is back in the classroom.
We're in an ag community located in northeast Nebraska where, agriculture is our livelihood up here. And so to get this program back into the school is very big.
The school has a deep history with FFA. Chartered in 1931, it received state recognition, awarded as the best chapter, and even gained national attention. Local farmer Kenny Ranke went through the program. So did his family members before him.
It was a struggle to get the program started. I know we tried little intro classes, things like that, but we never could get the full program to get it going, to get what the kids really needed to be competitive in all the ag sectors.
The decision to be without ag education was out of the school's control. In the early 2000s, Nebraska had an issue with state aid funding.
A lot of decisions had to be made in regards to cost, and as staff is 80 to 85% of a school's costs, logically that's where it comes from.
It's a situation other schools around the country face too.
So I think a lot of those programs that closed were due to the fact that we had decreased funding.
Gosen says it's also hard to find teachers, an issue schools still face today.
With teachers moving and changing schools, if the school couldn't find a teacher to replace them, they'd have to close the program. That or they'd hire a teacher that maybe was coming through an alternative certification.
He says nationally, FFA membership hit an all-time low during the 1980s farm crisis. But chapters have continued to rebound over the last 10 years, now at record levels.
I know of a few districts that are bringing it back and they want applicants. They want to offer programs and have great teachers in it, and the demand is there.
Especially in Nebraska.
There is no state formula for added cost funding for starting a program, so it's not a financial incentive to do so. They're doing it completely because of the need for teaching ag to try to retain some of their students in their local industries.
He says Nebraska chapters are up double digits percentage-wise over the last 7 years, which means membership in the state is growing drastically too.
I'm glad that the younger generations get a chance that the people above me didn't, because I know they all wanted one, but they never got it until this year. Each have to discuss how many times? Twice before we go to a vote. knowing that, a couple years from now I can look back on that and go, hey, that is something I was a big part of. Getting that restarted again is something that will be very rewarding, I think, down the line.
Because the town of Neely may be small, but ag has continued to be a big part of its future. Reporting in Neely, Nebraska, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. For Mike Hoffman and all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.